Hey guys, today on the program, we have Jonathan Pototschnik back from New Zealand. Last time we talked to you, you're prepping to go to New Zealand
Okay,
all the
so
way from Texas. How was that?
it was awesome. New Zealand is fantastic. It was our first time to be there, and it lived up to our expectations.
Now, I'm not great at geography, Jonathan, but Texas to New Zealand seems about as far as a travel that you could go on.
Yeah, it's a bit of a hike. I think you fly 16 hours to Sydney, at least we did, out of Dallas, and then 3 hours down to Queenstown in southern New Zealand on the southern island. So pretty long flight.
Okay, and that flight, you got to sit up in the front for the 16 hours. They give you meals and stuff, and what was that like?
Uh, it's much better than not sitting up in the front. On a long trip like that, you're very thankful you get to do something like that. Yes, you get to lay down and try to sleep.
And they bring you meals and, like, do they have a shower up there? What's it like? I've never
No,
flown first class
I've heard
on long flight.
yeah, I've heard of this shower thing. I have never been on such a flight. I think I think the tickets for those flights, and they tend to be different airlines. I was flying on American Airlines. Um, I have no idea what that ticket might cost. I mean, I'd guess 50,000 bucks there and back or something like that. I have never experienced that. So no, it's just on American. It's business class. You have a lie flat seat, and they serve you a few meals depending on how long the flight is. And as I said, it's much better than sitting in the back because you at least get to lay down and try to sleep.
Yeah, did you actually fall asleep on the plane, or what was that like?
I did on that flight. I'm not a good sleeper on airplanes, and so oftentimes, I don't really end up sleeping, or maybe I'll fall asleep for an hour or two, but it usually doesn't work out for me. But it's still better because you can lay down and you can kind of relax, and you're sort of, we'll call it, in and out, at least for me. But I think I did sleep on that flight. I think it went pretty good.
Okay, and then you guys landed in, Sydney, Australia. How much of a layover did you have until you went over to New Zealand?
You know what? I'm wrong on that. We actually landed in Auckland. I'm wrong on that. We flew all the way to Auckland. On the way home, we went out through Sydney.
Okay,
And so we probably had maybe a 2-hour layover in Auckland, and then we flew south to Queenstown.
okay. Did you stay at one of these five-star hotels, or did you stay at one of the, I forget what you told me, Abercrombie& and Fitch or something like that?
Not oh, you're thinking of Abercrombie& and Kent, who I've
Okay,
used. Yeah. I've
Abercrombie.
used them to help me plan a number of my trips, and yeah, we stayed at all pretty epic places.
Okay.
Yeah,
Then
yeah.
what did you do all day? For you were there for over a month, right?
We were there for, yeah, 5 weeks. Now, we were only in New Zealand for 3.5 weeks, and then the rest of the trip, we were in Australia.
Okay.
And so 3.5 weeks. So when Tiffany and I got married, we got married at the end of 21, so it's been a while now. And when we were 22, we were watching this show on TV called The Most Beautiful Walk in the World, or The Greatest Walk in the World, or something like that. And it was this multi-day hike in the middle of nowhere in New Zealand. And we both said, that's what we want to do. And then we had kids, and I started building businesses, and New Zealand's on a completely different, like, our summer is their winter. And so when our boys were out of school over the years for summer vacation, we didn't want to go to New Zealand during the winter. We couldn't do this hike. So we had never been. This was the first time we'd been to New Zealand. So we started that trip with a 4-day hike in the fjords in the middle of nowhere. We had no cell service for 4 or 5 days. And so that's how we started the trip. And we only focused on the South Island, and then we went from area to area on the South Island, and we did a bunch of hiking and all kinds of. We love nature, we love hiking, we like being outdoors, and so we did a lot of that stuff for 3.5 weeks.
Wow, that's absolutely fantastic. How
Yeah.
did the diet hold up? What kind of food did they eat in New Zealand? I know you were preaching to us about being a business athlete on the last podcast. How'd you do on this trip?
New Zealand, I did pretty good, as I remember. Um, New Zealand is way healthier than the United States. When you go into their stores, they do not have the selection of junk and stuff that we have. Now, you can go into the restaurants and probably get whatever you want, but It's different. It's absolutely different. There's no 50 varieties of chips and tons of varieties of all these different desserts. It's quite slim back. It feels like and the other thing to know is we were on the South Island. There's about 1 million people that live on the South Island. It's a more, Queenstown, for example, I believe is considered the, uh, what's the word? It's like adventure mecca of the world, or some people, it's a very, we'll call it athletic, outdoorsy. There's a lot going on from uh, we'll just again go with the athletic standpoint. There's a lot of people doing a lot of outdoorsy types of things. So it's probably naturally a healthier environment. But getting to meet a couple people, for example, we met this guy that owns a hotel and in New Zealand, and he was from New York. And he had talked about how different the eating habits are there and how much healthier it is and how hard it is to get some of the stuff that we get in America. So long answer to say, I did pretty good, simply because we were trying to be good. We were hiking the whole time, and we were probably in an environment where they generally eat a little bit better.
Now, these hikes do you see out into the ocean, or are they along the shore? What's the views like on these hikes?
So in Queenstown, that's the very bottom of the southern island. We were staying on the water. And so our hotel was literally looking out on the water. And we did a bunch of hikes around there. But then we'd also go to other areas and in that area, and you might not have seen water. So it kind of, I would say the majority of the trip, we actually didn't see water. But it just so happened when we were in Queenstown, you're near the water. A bunch of the other areas that we stayed, we were inland.
Okay. And what kind of wildlife do they have out there in New Zealand?
Not what you'd expect. They birds. I mean, that's my summary of New Zealand. It's birds. They have deer and they have birds and they have some little rodent type creatures. And I think I've named about everything that I was aware of. They don't have anything that'll kill you. They don't have anything that'll poison you. They don't have it's an island, and they've been protective of what's been allowed onto the island. And so there's not the diversity of wildlife that we see here. It's heavily around birds. In fact, when we were doing our multi-day hike, they had traps. So you're in truly the middle of nowhere with no cell phone coverage. And they have these traps everywhere for feral cats that have been introduced into the environment. And they're having a problem with these cats that are killing the wildlife, be it birds. And so that was when we did that hike in the middle of nowhere, I don't remember seeing anything other than birds. So that's the gist of the wildlife there.
Okay. And then what's the networking like when you're staying at these fancy hotels? And you mentioned you met the hotel owner, but I'm sure you've come across some pretty fluent people, mingling with them. Have you have any networking stories on these trips?
Well, I've met people that we talked to, but nobody that I've ever kept up with afterwards. Um, Depending on the property you stay in. So probably our second favorite place we stayed was called Minaret Station. So Minaret Station was one of the top properties I've ever stayed in, and it's so in something that I didn't know before I got to New Zealand. I knew we were staying at this place for a short time called Minaret Station. I didn't know what a station is, and a station is a massive plot. I'm probably describing this poorly, but it's this massive plot of, call it ranch land. So in the US, we might call it a ranch. There, they call it a station. And so Minaret Station was this place where this family has 50,000 acres of land called a station. And they are one of the families that was instrumental in bringing helicopters for farming into New Zealand way back in the day. And they have built these 4, call it lodges, on their property, which is, again, in the middle of nowhere. And the only way in and out is by helicopter. And so you have one of these little chateaus, and then there's a big, I'll call it like the main house. So you meet in the main house for all of your meals.
Wow.
And so, as an example, when we arrived, there were 3 other couples staying in the other 3 chateaus. And so the cool thing about the way they did it at this place is you have your meals with everybody else. And so we would see them at lunch and we'd see them at dinner, and then we'd all go off and do our thing. Like we wanted to do a lot of hiking. So we'd have the helicopter take us and drop us, and we'd have hike, and then the helicopter would pick us back up and we'd have dinner with them. So it's not that we made friends with them and we've kept up with them since, but you have interesting conversations. And all of the three couples that were there, they all owned companies. They were all older than us. We were quite a bit younger than everybody else. I think everybody else was 60s and older, but they all had built companies in their one family was from England, one was from Australia, and then one was from the United States. And so that's kind of the experience staying in some of the upper level properties, because most of the properties we stayed in New Zealand, they were places where there would only be four to six rooms, 4 or 6 suites. And so you have an opportunity to meet the other people. And that's, I would say, in the upper end, expensive places, that was sort of the experience.
And you had your sons and your wife with you on this trip?
No, it's just Tiffany and I. My boys
Okay.
are my one boy, my youngest is in college, and my oldest owns a business, and it's really hard for them to get away at this point.
Okay. We'll move along from this. You guys are listening like, Paul, you're talking to the Lawn Care Millionaire. Start talking about lawn care. I'm just fascinated with your world travels. This is my last world travel question.
Yeah, you're fine.
How would you rank New Zealand to everywhere else you've gone? Like, give me your top 5, Jonathan, from your
Okay.
3-year sabbatical travel in the world. Does New Zealand make the top 5? And what is your top 5?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so my wife and I are pretty aligned on this. If I could only, for the rest of my life, if I could only go one place, I'd probably go to Italy. I think we'll be going to Italy for our 5th time early next year. Love Italy. But that's a completely different experience. New Zealand and Iceland, absolute top of the list. So it'd be Italy, New Zealand, Iceland are top 3. We love New Zealand and Iceland for the nature and the outdoors, and because we like hiking. We love Vietnam, and we think so Vietnam would make it towards the top of our list. And I don't think this one will hold up, but we're pretty partial to Slovenia. So in Slovenia, which is in Eastern Europe, it's right below Austria. It's got mountains and great hiking. It's a beautiful country, and there's an area called Bled, which is, if you look up the pictures of Bled, Slovenia, I think it's one of the very, very beautiful places in the world. And so those would probably be our top 5. I think one of those is about to get bumped. We'll be in Asia, in Japan in November, and we've never been to Japan, and that's always been at the top of my list. It's just been another one that has been hard to get to with the boys. And so I suspect that next time I talk to you, well, I'll talk to you before then, but someday when we talk again, I suspect Japan is going to be in that top 5.
Cool. Well, thanks for sharing this, Jonathan.
You're welcome.
Success and the ability to get to do this. I think a lot of folks listening, this is our vision. Like, this is why we build businesses and work so hard. Like, we want to, go to all these places one day and live the life you're living. So this is very encouraging and motivating for us. But now that you've kind of gone through your 3-year sabbatical, what's next? What are you up to nowadays?
I'm back to work. So I believe at the beginning of April. So we got back in March from New Zealand, and then there was just a variety of things we had going on. And so right towards the beginning of April, I was back to work full time, and it's taken me a little bit to get back into the groove and be productive and efficient and not waste time and all that. But I'm fully back in the groove of work. So for now, I've got a lot of things I want to do. In fact, I've got almost too many opportunities and things I want to do now, but I've been very, very focused on working on the City Turf business. And that's the predominant thing I'm doing. My son has a software product that I think has real potential, and he's seeing traction with his clients that he has and really good feedback. And I'm wanting to implement that product at City Turf. Now that I'm back working on City Turf, I kind of need this product. So I've been doing a little work with him. We've been designing some functionality for his product together that will eventually get built in that product so I can use the product at City Turf. And so I've been working on that a fair bit. those are the two big things. And then I'm going to be launching a new YouTube channel here pretty quick. And so that's the third thing. I've got other things I want to do, but I'm limiting myself to those three things. And I would say 80%, 70 to 80% of all my time is being spent on City Turf right now.
Okay. Now, when you were in Atlanta, you mentioned a passion for the 18 to 24-year-old or just a younger
Yeah.
entrepreneur that's got the itch to run a business, but makes a lot of mistakes in those early days. How's that cultivating? Are you still passionate about helping the younger entrepreneurs?
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. That's not changed. However, I was trying to figure out where I was going first and what I was going to do. And I have decided that I have for years talked about getting involved in City Turf again. And what I discovered after I got involved in the business is I want to be focused. I really have learned over the years to be focused, and I preach being focused. I think it's critical, and I wasn't always that way. And so I have this. After I got going with working on the City Turf business, I realized I really can't do too many other things right now. I want to. I need to block those out, and I just need to go down the City Turf road for a while and really move the ball forward and accomplish some things here. I'm not going to stay focused on the business long term, but I'm going to spend a good bit of time here. And so that focus has led me to decide that some of the things like working with the younger, coaching younger individuals uh, is going to be a little bit later, but I'm still heading that direction.
Okay. Now, what's the new YouTube channel? When are you launching that? What's going to be the content on that channel about?
So I'm launching that channel at the beginning of August. And the name of the channel is 5 for 50. I didn't use my last name because I don't figure anybody will ever find me if I do. I think you and I might have talked about that before. I know a bunch of people know my name, but to get it out there, I'm a little concerned that it's not the right decision. So the channel's 5 for 50, and the focus is on general home services. So it's focused on home services, business within home services, and it's got some similarities to the old Lawn Care Millionaire. My goal with the channel is I don't have a goal in the sense that there's some reason that I'm launching it. I don't have a purpose. For example, back in the day when I did Lawn Care Millionaire, it was connected to Service Autopilot. I don't have that type of a purpose, but Lawn Care Millionaire was such a great experience that I've decided I want to do this again. And then, as you alluded to, knowing that where I'm heading is to work with young entrepreneurs, I wanted to start creating content again. And I'll just see where it takes me. But the concept is I'm not doing just green industry, I'm going more general home services, staying in that lane, but business within. And what I'm wanting to do is basically lay out a lot of the teaching that I would have done through Academy. And I want to lay that out for people so that they have a roadmap to follow to build their companies and get where they want to go. And I'm going to do it through this channel. It's at first going to be predominantly me essentially covering topics, answering questions, but I'm going to take this channel more seriously than I did Lawn Care Millionaire. Not that and by seriously, it makes it sound like I didn't care about Lawn Care Millionaire. I don't mean that. It's just I'm going to put more effort into this. And if I can get traction and if people like it, then I'll probably build a team around myself to create better and better and more content. And so I'm going to see where it takes me. I'm going to start out doing more of the Lawn Care Millionaire thing, which is, as I said, let's call it teaching or answering questions or talking about topics that'll help an individual build their business. And I'm going to try then different forms of content to see what works and what people like, and we'll see where it takes me.
What does 5 for 50 mean again?
Well, I haven't told you. So 5 for 50 is my belief that if you dedicate yourself to 5 years of head down, hard work, focused on the right actions to develop yourself and the right actions to develop your business, it'll change the next 50 years of your life. It'll essentially change the rest of your life. So I have this very strong belief that a lot of people hear a message that you can have your thing in 90 days or you can have your thing in a year if you just follow this program or buy this course or join this coaching group. We'll shortcut everything. And there's a lot of truth in that, but we'll shortcut everything. And this will not be a hard journey. It won't take that long and you can get the thing you want. And I believe along the way, people don't get the outcome that they were promised and they give up because it's a challenging road to go build something. It's a challenging road to develop yourself into the kind of person that could be a leader of a bigger organization. And it drives me crazy. I see those messages on YouTube, I see those messages everywhere, and it's just not truth. Truth is that you have to build a foundation of who you become, and you have to build a foundation within your business. And that foundation is what ultimately creates a business that you can be proud of and creates a life that's incredible, unlike the majority, and turns you into a person that can be an example to a lot of people. And so my message, while not popular and maybe not the ideal name to attract from a marketing standpoint, is it's going to take you 5 years to, and let's be realistic about it, to build that foundation. But from that, like that short commitment and the broadness of time of your life, it will transform everything for the rest of your life. And you'll get to live in a way that very few people get to live. And I'm not talking strictly about money. I'm talking about who you become, the discipline that you develop inside yourself, what goes on inside your brain, the confidence that you have, the optimism, the example you are to your spouse, the example you are to your children, the example you are to your family, the example you are to your team members who join your organization. And so I am an advocate for this idea of putting your head down and doing what it takes to invest 5 years and so you can get what you want. That's a long explanation, but that's what 5 for 50 means to me.
That is so good. Now, can we go and subscribe to the channel right now in July, or is it not even available until
So
August?
the channel's up, and I'll post my first video next week. So my first 2 videos I'm going to post are basically just me kind of laying out for the few people that will find it initially, just a video from me kind of laying out where the channel's going. And then the second video is explaining what 5 for 50 means. Those videos will be up the last week of July. And then we'll start posting regular content moving forward the first week of August. And yes, that YouTube channel's up there right now, depending on when you hear this, and you can go subscribe to it.
Okay, well, I'm really looking forward to this, Jonathan. I binge watched back in the day when you didn't have the fancy microphone you got now, and you just
Yeah.
on a whiteboard.
Yep.
And as somebody who is trying to figure out how to run a lawn mowing business, I was just eating up everything you taught about calculating your time and cards on file and all. I mean, you were saying things that nobody else was teaching me, and I would binge watch those. And you moved the needle in my business. And I know Naylor and Pajak and Keith Kalfas and Jeremy Talboy, and I talked to all these other people, and like, we watch the same videos, man. So
That's
now
awesome.
with your better microphone and better setup, but you're still bringing the heat and the fire and sharing these trade secrets essentially.
Yeah, that's what I want to do. I get in my head a little bit on this because what you just described is exactly why I'm doing this again. I had a small audience, but I feel like I had an audience of people who really valued the information I put out there. And I hear so many stories of people using that information to change their world. And that makes me feel really good. And that's why I'm doing it again. The part where I get in my head is, it's easy to look around at other YouTubers and they take a different approach that's a little bit more entertainment based, which is smart. But I struggle with, I'm kind of more, I want to go deep. This is how you do it. These are the steps you need to take. And I worry if that will resonate with a bigger audience. And that's where I get in my head. I was like, okay, I just need to do what will be most valuable to it's kind of my 5 for 50 name. It's a fairly serious name. I'm asking you to, make a commitment here. And that's kind of, if you follow my content, I think that the person that will follow me is a person that's pretty serious and really wants to make a change and really wants to move the ball forward. So that's what I'm going to do it again.
That's awesome. Well, we'll put the link in the show notes, and you guys
Oh,
can
thank
go
you.
smash that subscribe button,
Please.
follow along, and it's going to be really good. Are you ever going to like interview anybody, or it's just going to be all solo, or what's kind of
Yeah.
your vision for the channel?
Yeah. So a couple things. So initially, I'm just going to, well, I've actually already done a couple interviews with 2 different individuals. So I've got some content. I've already created a bit of content to get myself ahead because I'm going to be in Ireland in September. And so I had to build all my content in advance for September. And I've got multiple interviews. I've got a whole series on robotics in the green industry coming that I've already done and recorded. So I've got a bunch of content. And yes, to answer your question, it'll be me talking about topics that you can apply to your business to build it. I will be interviewing individuals. I'm also going to test a concept where you can ask me a video question and I'll answer that video question. So that way I have an opportunity to interact with you and answer your specific question. And then from there, we'll see where it goes. But I've got probably 4 or 5 other different concepts for the channel that are a little more involved and time consuming. And so I'm going to start with the first 3 I told you about, and then I'll start testing other concepts to see what gets traction.
That's fantastic. I'm very curious, Jonathan, and I know you'll have the full length videos about robotics in the lawn care industry, but what are your thoughts on that trend and give us the abbreviated summary of what you said in those videos?
Yeah. So it's me talking in the videos, as well as I interview an individual for 2 hours that is running one of the leading robotics companies and has a tremendous amount of experience. Like, he's been in this space now a decade. And so my take is, I guess it's been years since I might have said something at your event. I don't recall. I've said a few things about robotics. So my take is we're making progress. The progress is not as fast as I would have believed it to be or hoped it to be. And where I see robotics working best right now is in the commercial space. Without question, I think it is absolutely succeeding in specific segments of the commercial space, not the entirety of the commercial space, but definitely specific types of properties, specific segments. It's working and it's getting traction. It's working in some cases in the residential space, but you don't see a lot of companies building big businesses around robotics. And I think it's going to be a while before we get there on the residential side. One of the videos that I have already recorded is laying out a business model that I do think is viable for the residential space. And the summary would be, I'm still optimistic. I don't know what the timeline's going to be. I think as I said, if it's in specific parts of residential, commercial, the timeline's now. But for the bulk of the industry, it's still going to be years out into the future for a whole ton of reasons that we talk about in the videos.
Cool. I'm looking forward to watching that. In regards to a lawn business, Jonathan, a lot of our listeners are new into this industry. Year 1, year 2, 50,000 to 250,000 revenue, one crew, just getting started,
Mhm.
and they're building this thing. What is essential for them not to overlook? You mentioned earlier foundation and getting everything properly in place. What would you say to that guy who's 50K to 250K just getting started? What is essential for him not to overlook while he's building that foundation?
In terms not overlook in terms of his actions, is that what you're referring to, or what he
Well,
should be
just
doing?
he's building, as you just imagine, you just started a new, City Turf didn't exist, and you just
Yeah.
started a new lawn business with everything you know now. What are those anchors, those foundations, those things that get in place? That's like, this has to be perfect. This has to be perfect. How do you build that proper foundation for these guys that are younger listening in today, younger
Yeah.
in business?
Yeah, absolutely. So I can give you a couple. I would really encourage you to try to be focused and keep things simple. So let me elaborate on that one. When you're first starting, I could say, hey, you need to keep things simple and you should only mow lawns, or you should only do fertilization weed control, you should only do pest control, or whatever your thing is. And there's a strong argument to the why that's not realistic. Another argument I could make is you shouldn't do one-time work, you should only do recurring work. Sounds great on paper. The reality is when you're 50 to a few $100,000, you're just trying to make money. You're trying to pay for the truck payment and buy the next piece of upgraded equipment and live. And you kind of have to do whatever you have to do. You've got to do some one-time work. You try to do as little of it maybe as possible. You've got to do 5 different services. That's just the reality of it. You also might be hearing that, hey, I really need to try to get out of the field, but how do you pay for that? So the reality of the situation is, in the very beginning, you've just got to throw a lot of stuff at the wall and you got to do a lot of stuff. You got to take a lot of work. You might even need to go out of this service area that you originally constructed, but it's not overly profitable to do it, but it fills a gap in a day. And so you do it. And so where I would encourage you is, that's fine, but know that you cannot keep doing that or you will never have a good business. And so you have to be a little bit hardcore. And by hardcore, I mean, you have a customer, Miss Smith, that you really like and you want to help her out. And one day you just realize like her property doesn't make sense for me anymore. It's out of my service area, or I'm doing things that I'm providing services that we shouldn't be providing long term. And you have to let Miss Smith go. And those decisions are really hard. What I would encourage you to do is do whatever you got to do in the beginning, but as fast as you can, you need to shrink that service area. You need to shrink the number of services you're providing. You need to stop doing one-time services. You need to do the things that will make you the most money. And the reason you need to do the things that will make you the most money is because you've got to have the profit and the money to start hiring people to help you. And also, the more you do, the less you will be good at anything, the less you will stand out. You'll make more mistakes. You'll be slower at turning estimates, getting them out to the client. There will be all these things that you have the best of intentions, but you'll be subpar because you're doing too many things. And so I would encourage your goalpost to be, I'm going to get down to performing just a few services in a fairly tight service area, and we're going to get really busy, and we're going to be profitable, and I'm going to hire somebody to help me. And then as fast as I can, I'm going to hire somebody to drive the truck so that I can get freed up to go, build the business in a sense. And we could talk about what that means. So that'd be one. I've got a couple others for you, but I'll pause right there. Does that resonate? What I just described?
Keep it going, Jonathan.
All right. So with that being your overarching theme, we'll call it, the way you're thinking is, hey, we're going to try to be simple. Let me elaborate one more time on simple. To me, simple means I also want to get to a place where if I buy my second truck, I'd really like to buy a similar truck to my first, but that may not be realistic because you're working your way up to the kind of truck that you really aspire to have. That would be the ideal truck for the business. But again, we're just talking about where are you marching? You want to get to a place where you're kind of running about all the same trucks, all the same equipment. They're all vinyled or wrapped. I tend to like paint and vinyl. I think it tends to be cheaper and lasts longer than wraps. And you want to do that. And you want them all to look the same. So I just kind of preaching my message of simplicity, focus, everything being about the same. Get all complexity out of your life. By complexity, I'm talking about all kinds of different equipment, different trucks. Trucks look different. You want to get as quick as you can to kind of a uniform way to run the business. That leads to your life being less busy, you being less beat down by the million different things on your to-do list, so that you have more time to go look for great team members, to go sell more work to the clients you already have, to get new clients. And so that would lead me to the next two things that are about the only two things that matter to the business. You need to find the team members that can work with you, and you need to bring in more work. And that's your only job for a long time in this business. Because what tends to happen is most people will focus on one of those things. They'll focus on getting additional work, but they don't focus on the team. And if you don't have the belief that you're going to be able to find more team members that are actually good and reliable, you'll live in fear of selling more work. And if you're the opposite and you have 4 different individuals that could join your company relatively quickly, and they're good people, and you could build a business around them, and you sort of have spent your time on that, but you haven't spent any time on attracting clients to come to your business to be your client, then you've got the opposite problem. And that is, you will always live in fear of hiring the next team member because you're afraid you won't have the work for them, and your business just plateaus. And I don't know what the current numbers are, but in the earlier days of Service Autopilot, I remember that the plateau number in the green industry would tend to be around that $250 to $300,000 for a maintenance company, and closer to $400,000 for a landscape installation company. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact there's material cost, so a little higher revenue. And a lot of companies really they get stuck in that, we'll call it $300,000 to $400,000 range. And my belief is it's coming from this challenge of not recruiting, not learning how to find good people. Or another one is you find people, but then you don't get the bad people. You don't fire the people that you can't rely on, which is another it leads to the same problem I've described. If you have people, but you don't trust them to show up, you don't trust that you can perform the work quickly and on time, and it will be of high quality, then you live in fear of marketing and getting more clients. You're like, I got to fix my business first. But then a lot of companies don't fire the people and have a chance of fixing the business. So it's this back and forth of those two activities. And what I see and what I did is we manufacture all these other things we need to be doing. I need to create systems in my business. I need to fix my accounting system. I need to find a new piece of software. I need to get this piece of equipment. I need to do all these things that are all technically valid things to be doing in your business, but frankly, they're all distractions from the only two things that matter: finding your next team member, really great team member, maybe to replace one on your team that's not great now, and finding more work. And that's the only two worlds. You want to spend 85% of your entire life in those two businesses to get past that plateau period that I've talked about. So those would be my top three: focus, simplicity as one, number two, recruiting team members, and number three, recruiting new clients.
That is so good, Jonathan. Thanks for sharing. I'm curious now, with you coming back from your trip and everything and going all in on City Turf this summer, what does that look like to the scale and the size of your business now? What are you doing on a day-to-day basis, running this business that's already established in a well-oiled machine?
Yeah, so I'm not running it. I have a team that runs the business, and they don't need me, and they don't need me to interfere, and they don't need me to tell them how to do it. They're better than I am at it. They're very good operators, and so I'm not coming in to take anything over. I'm not coming in and asking anybody to report to me. I'm just coming in and saying, "Hey, how can I help you? Where do we have some opportunities?" And I back to my message of focus. I'm only focused on one thing right now. And I actually had them set me up a place at the office where I could work. And then I've ended up not really spending much of any time there, because if I'm there, then I'm going to get distracted on something else. And I'm staying in a very specific lane right now. And what I'm spending all my time on is rebuilding all of our marketing, all of our communication, all of our branding, building a marketing team for the company, and that's it. But that project is a year-long project. It's a massive project. I've got about 4 individuals I'm now working with on what we'll call the marketing team, and I'll continue to grow that team. But we are rebuilding everything. And it's been, I built basically the whole marketing system, the branding. I built all of this a very long time ago, before Service Autopilot. And then Service Autopilot consumed my life, and I never spent any time. We've lived on what I did a very long time ago. And so now we're rebuilding everything. And that's what I'm working on. And it's a lot of work to write all the copy, all the marketing, all the communications with the clients. We are very customer service oriented and very educational oriented. And so there's lots of education and teaching's the wrong word, but it's more like giving of advice and recommendations. But we have information we'll give a client that doesn't sound, you'd have to see it to understand what I'm talking about. And there's 20 or 30 different types of problems a client could encounter at their home. And we've built explanations for those problems and advice and solutions where we can just literally give that information to our client. We've got a whole process where we can give it to them in print. It'll get emailed to them. Somebody will follow up by phone. And I know I'm not being super clear, but my point is, by the time I'm done building everything we're building, I'll probably have built over 100 different pieces of information that will touch them, whether it be a postcard to sell new clients, whether it be a door hanger, whether it be an email they get, or a landing page they land on the website, or a text message that they receive. I'm building all of that infrastructure.
Wow, that's really cool, Jonathan, and inspiring. What has been the biggest things that you did when you started your business that now you're revamping, that you're like, wow, I can't believe we didn't address that sooner?
Well, I think almost everything I'm doing is kind of I can't believe we didn't do this sooner, but I got very distracted at Service Autopilot. It was a very all-consuming business to build it. And so I wasn't able to really spend much time on City Turf. And so that's where I say I look at everything we're doing from a marketing standpoint. This is not me diminishing anybody at City Turf or me saying anything negative. This was kind of my role in that business, and I wasn't there to help them. We didn't have a marketing team. We didn't have marketing people at City Turf. So this is not on anybody else. It's just I wasn't there doing it. So when I look at uh, our business has continued to grow, but it's grown after we hit 10 million. It's just grown very slowly. And the reason it's grown slowly is because we haven't spent a dollar on marketing or hardly any money on marketing in 7 to 8 years, probably 8 years, frankly. And the marketing that we do is largely the marketing that I created well over a decade ago. And so, not a direct answer to you other than to say pretty much everything we're doing, I look at and say, man, I sure wish I had improved that 10 years ago because we'd probably be, double the size we are. Theoretically, we've always struggled to solve the labor problem, which has been a little bit of a bottleneck. And that'll be one of the things I move on to next to help the team work on. But I would say almost everything needs to be improved. I mean, give you an example. We've redesigned our trucks. I just look at the design of our trucks from way back, and they're very busy. And it was a little bit of a different time. Back then, uh, you know, you would have a phone number and a website address all over it. Not that you don't use that stuff now, but frankly, when somebody looks at a truck now, like they're not writing the phone number down on the side of the truck. They're just Googling City Turf. And we would list a whole bunch of services on our truck. I'm stripping most of that stuff off. It's just an example of I look at the trucks and say they're super busy, and we can massively simplify what you're seeing on the truck. And the only two things that matter, frankly, are City Turf. We want to pound the name City Turf into the market's brain, and we want to pound our mascot Chester into their brain. And there needs to be a few other things on the truck, but frankly, not more than that in this day and age that we now live. And so that'd just be one of many examples.
So Chester's staying. And
Oh
your
yeah,
color
Chester's
scheme and all
Chester, Chester's getting promoted. He's about to play a bigger role. Yes.
that. Okay.
Yeah.
That is awesome. What are your thoughts in 2024 on door hangers? You also mentioned postcards. What role do those play now in 2024? I watched your videos back in 2015, you talking about door hangers, but what are your thoughts on door hangers and postcards nowadays?
Well, I'm going to give you, let's call it theories, because I haven't retested any of these things. And so I need to test them, and then I'll have data so I can give an accurate answer. But my belief is that they all absolutely work. Now, a difference for door hangers is that in my market, more and more neighborhoods are restricting door hangers. So it's a little more difficult than it was back in the day. And back in the day, door hangers were, I can't remember now, but our third best performing means of bringing in new clients and from a conversion standpoint. And at one point, our number one single best way to bring in new clients. And I don't remember what our cost of acquisition was on a door hanger, but I want to say it used to be about $80 a client, which is just an incredible bargain, frankly, if you can bring in a client $80. And I don't know what that date is going to be today. I do know I have a lot of friends in the industry, and I know a bunch of people that still use door hangers, and the data is still good for them. They would do more door hangers, but they struggle with finding good door hanger companies to put out the door hangers, and that tends to be the bottleneck. So a number of the companies I know that don't do a lot of door hangers, it's not because they don't work. It's more that they're just really challenging to get out. And so some companies have moved to EDDM or postcards, or frankly, stop doing what you'd call print marketing, but they work. And my belief, again, we'll call this a theory because I've got to retest it, is I'm fond of door hangers for periods of time. So we'll use a mowing example. In my market, if mowing is predominantly being sold from March 15th until late May, that window, I would want to go hard with door hangers. And then after that, I would either slow it down to a once a month cadence of a door hanger or eliminate them completely. And again, all this needs to be tested, but I think door hangers have a place. And then now moving to postcards, I am going to first test postcards to existing clients. So I'd use a cadence of, let's say we're trying to upsell something to a client. We know that they are buying pest control, but they're not buying fertilization weed control. I'll do something like a 2 email blast to the homeowner promoting the fertilization weed control service. And so on the first blast out to the client, we will let's say our list is 1,000 people. On the first blast, we'll send it to 1,000 people. We'll then figure out who has bought. So let's say 50 have bought. We'll pull the 50 out, and then we'll send second blast to the 950 remaining. If another 50 buy, then the third touch will be a postcard to 900 people that will go to their home. And so postcards for me will generally be used initially to sell more to an existing client to expand the value. And it will generally be a second or third step in a marketing series. So first, I'll try to take the easy sells off the table with email, or you could do it with text. And I want to take the easy sells off, and then I want to then only send the postcards to those remaining that haven't bought. After that, after you've first done the two things I've talked about, or let's just say after you first figured out print marketing to sell more to your existing clients, then my belief is you take print marketing and you try to expand a market, you try to sell into a market. So the way I would approach that one is I look at the entirety of the market I serve and I say, okay, what neighborhoods, because I'm residential, what neighborhoods in this market are most likely to buy whatever the services I'm selling via a postcard or a marketing piece? Like, meaning that if I picture a street, what is the highest of the number of homes? What's the highest, what neighborhood has the highest number of probable buyers? So as an example, if I was kind of, imagine you're looking down on a Google map and you're looking at a neighborhood and you're like, this is a great neighborhood. If I were to bet, I'd bet 20% of these homes might be a buyer of this service I'm selling. And if you look at a different market, this is all just guessing. You look at a different market and you're like, I think 50% of the homes in this market are buyers of this service. I'm going to pick that market, that neighborhood, and I'm going to pick a couple similar neighborhoods, maybe where I'm only mailing 1,000 marketing pieces. And I'm going to mail multiple postcards spread out over a number of weeks into that market, and I'm going to test, and I'm going to figure out what works. And I might and then I might even, if I'm not getting the results I want, I might try a different postcard into that market of 1,000 or 2,000 homes, and I'm going to track my results and figure out what works. And until I get to a place where it's like, I think I figured out what works, what messaging works, what cadence of how frequently I hit them. Until I figure that out, I won't take that campaign and start hitting other neighborhoods. Excuse me. So I'm using that. I'm finding a neighborhood, multiple neighborhoods of very probable buyers, and I'm testing my concept there, because print marketing is very expensive and it can go very, very badly on you. And so before I expand and just mail tons of mailers, I need to be fairly confident that I can get some success with those mailers. So that's how I approach it. I believe both work, but they take a fair bit of effort, some testing. They're kind of time consuming, but when your competitors are only using Facebook and Google AdWords and maybe email marketing into their base, this gives you another channel or another way to reach clients that I think is an advantage to a company if they want to go faster.
Sounds good. I'm Dan Kennedy. I've probably read every book he has, and I watch all of his content, and it's right on, spot on with what you're teaching there.
I did all that stuff back in the day, so I have experience doing it. I know it works, and I know it can also not work. And so that's where it's coming from. But you're right. I probably originally got my inspiration for all of that from learning from Dan Kennedy and other people. And that's what then prompted me to go try these things. And I found, kind of figured out over time what works. And I want to get back to some of the roots of what built City Turf.
So good. You did mention email marketing. What does that look like with your existing customers? And it's basically lawn mowing, and then you upsell the fertilization, weed control, and the pest control. Is that your core offering?
Are the four services we most promote are fertilization, weed control, pest control, arbor care. We don't do tree trimming or takedowns or stump grinding. We do the health side of trees, disease and feeding, and irrigation. Those are the 4 services we most promote. Lawn mowing is a big service for us, but we don't really promote it. We don't advertise it, but we're known for it in the market. So we get a lot of leads for that service. So we stay busy. And then we do bush trimming, we do mulch, flowers. Those are the big we do mosquitoes, but I lump that under pest control. So those are the big services. So when we're promoting something, we're promoting one of the big 4: pest, fert, arbor, and irrigation. Those are the things that we're talking about. And so we would, from an email marketing standpoint, the best way to market is, we'll call it one-on-one. So the most ideal way to get a new client or to expand the value of a client. And again, by expanding the value of a client, I'm meaning just upsell them, sell them more stuff. If they're currently spending $600 a year with you, how can you make them worth $1,000 to you? Meaning you sell them an additional service. The single, hands down, absolute best way to expand the value of a client is to text Miss Smith a very personal message. And by personal, I mean, it looks like you literally sat and wrote Miss Smith a message and you said, "Hey, Miss Smith," not that you're going to use this exact language. "Today, when I was out at your property, I noticed your bushes need to be trimmed. Let me know if I can help you out with that." And you send her a picture of her bushes that are a mess and need to be trimmed. That's going to be one of your single best ways to drive new revenue. It's very personal. It's a very focused message on a problem that she can both see it. You've described it. She'll read it because it's a text message. It doesn't feel like bulk marketing. It doesn't feel like it's not personal. It feels more customer service than it does feel selling. That is one of your single best strategies. So if you kind of think about the stair step of what works, the one-on-one, like the knocking on the door is even better. Knock on the door. "Hey, Miss Smith, just checking in, seeing how you're doing. Want to make sure you're happy with us. And by the way, I did a quick walk of your property after I finished mowing today, and I noticed your bushes need trimming. Is that something you want us to take care of for you? I've got a opening next Friday." It's like, that's the easy. And then you have a conversation. That's the easiest, best converting way to sell. Then you could go on from there to the text message concept I just gave. And then you could go to, let's call it, picking up the phone at the office and calling Miss Smith. And then after that could be sending her a one-on-one, a direct email. And the reason email's below text is because text is it's read. So everybody reads their text messages. They don't all look at their emails. So there's this hierarchy. And eventually you get to a level where it's a bulk message out to your customer base that looks pretty personal, and you're selling something to them. So in our case, when you get to that level of hierarchy, if we're looking in, and we use Service Autopilot. So we're looking in Service Autopilot and we're saying, okay, here are all the clients that are clients, but don't buy pest control. And so that's step 1. I know that they're not buying pest control. So I segment my list. My list is just my customer list. I segment it down to just the people that aren't buying pest control. The next thing I ask myself is now the ideal time to sell pest control? And by ideal time to sell pest control, are they feeling any pain? When they walk out their front door, are there mosquitoes? When they are out on the back porch, are there wasp nests? Are there spider webs? Are they seeing roaches in their home? What are the things that are happening right now that make them feel pain, like I've got a problem to solve? There are times of the year where you're not really seeing any issues, depending on what market you're in the United States. It'll vary. You're not seeing any issues. That's not an ideal time to sell pest control. You might still get clients to convert, but it's not ideal. I want to show up in their inbox when Miss Smith just encountered, hopefully, a roach this morning, or she's fed up with the wasp nest up in her, up on the ceiling right outside the back door. That's what I'm looking for. So I'm saying, I want to sell pest control. What is the best time to market it? Okay. If it's now, then I'm saying to myself, what is the best hook? Like, what is that thing? Back to, is she seeing roaches? Is she seeing wasps? What is the thing she's seeing? Because I want to make my message about that. So as an example, in Texas right now, it's mosquitoes. Mosquitoes are a nightmare. And so I want to speak to the mosquito problem. And then I want to get in her head. So I want to like, I want to talk about exactly what she's feeling, what she's thinking to herself about these mosquitoes. Is she annoyed that every time she opens the front door that to pick an Amazon package up off the porch, mosquitoes come in? If she's opening the front door and there's a wreath hanging on her door, or the mosquitoes living in that wreath, she opens it, they all fly in. Maybe she has a dog and she wants to let her dog outside and just leave the door cracked a little bit so the dog can let himself back in. Can't do that because of mosquitoes. She wants all the neighborhood kids to hang out at their house where they have a swimming pool. That's why they bought this house. They were dreaming of all the kids are going to come over here and play Xbox and they're going to hang out in the pool and they're going to play at our house. But nobody wants to hang out in the backyard because there are mosquitoes everywhere. You see kind of what I'm doing here? I'm trying to get in her head. I'm trying to imagine what she's thinking. And then I'm going to address exactly that in my copy. I'm going to ask her these questions that get into her head. So I'm thinking about, is now the right time to sell this service? If so, what's the pain they're experiencing? What do I need to say in my marketing to trigger that pain and have her nodding along like, yes, yes, I hate getting the Amazon package off the door. I hate getting the mail. I'm fed up with my kids don't want to go outside and play. They're staying in the house playing Xbox all day. And then I'm going to figure out the time to mail that, whether it be email or be a, excuse me, a postcard like we talked about. And then I'm going to think through, I know everybody's busy. They see it. They say to themselves, yeah, I got to get this mosquito treatment. We need to hire this company. But then they go to church that night. They have little league that night. They're under a deadline for work the next day. Something happens. They don't actually do it. So I got to show up again. And when I show up again, what's the slight little twist I could put on this subject line, look, feel, something that will get them to look at it a second time? And so that's a long explanation, but those are the things I'm thinking about.
That's good. Now you're getting in my head about these mosquitoes. I'm coming to Dallas September 3rd through 5. Are you guys got giant mosquitoes out there?
Where you're going to be, you won't even notice them.
Okay. You got in my head there, man. I moved down to Florida. I lived in Atlanta when you were in Atlanta, but I since then moved down to Sarasota, Florida, and it's
really
down here.
Yeah, when I've been in Florida, at least the parts I've been in, everybody's got those big what do you call it? It's like the screens on their back porch so you can hang out in the pool and keep all the bugs out.
Yeah, exactly. The alligators. I went golfing. Do you play golf, Jonathan?
No, I have, but I never have dedicated enough time to it to be any good at it. I wish I was, but I'm not willing to put the work into it.
Yeah, well, they have these big old alligators. I was just out golfing and the alligators just chilling there,
Oh yeah,
in the water. And I'm not used to it. So I'm just, I'm not used to alligator just sitting there watching me swing the golf club.
I've never seen that. I've heard the stories. Are you a big golfer? I didn't know you played.
I am. I really enjoy it from a networking perspective. I mean, it's incredible. So I am a golfer. I do it. And I'm actually, when I go to Vid Summit, I'm going to ask them some questions about creating content around it, because there's a lot of golf YouTube world. Like these guys are getting so many views, and I'm just trying to figure out how to best, like you said, you have so much going on. It's like, should I give my time to that, or is it a distraction, or any, I'm just trying to figure that out. But I love golfing.
My business partner in Service Autopilot, we don't own it anymore, but John, he's a huge golfer. He plays golf multiple times a week. He travels for golf all the time. And he constantly talks to me about the opportunity in the golf market and how much opportunity there is on YouTube, how much opportunity there is to build software for that space, build apps. And I don't pay much attention to it, but I will tell you that based on listening to John talk about this, there's probably a massive opportunity. And there's tons of competition, but golf is just this crazy business or industry where people just can't consume enough, whether it be content or buy enough stuff. And so I would imagine that's a really, really good market.
Well, I appreciate your feedback. The golf industry right now is absolutely exploding. The best golfer in the world actually lives in Dallas, Texas. Scotty Scheffler.
Okay.
Dallas, Texas native.
Okay.
And he lives there. So I'm headed out there September 3rd through 5th. So we're going to grab some dinner on that.
Yep.
3rd.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm hoping Naylor's going to come. I texted him. He's still undecided if he's coming down, but
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I had no idea who might be coming. That'd be great.
yeah,
Hopefully he does.
cool. Was there anything we're leaving out here that you wanted to share, Jonathan? Again, 5 for 50. Guys, go smash the subscribe button on Jonathan's new YouTube channel. I'm looking forward to that content. Is there anything else you want to share?
Not that I can think of. I was really more focused on what you feel like your audience needs and how I can help them. The one thing I just, and so if there's anything else, let me know. One thing I just thought of is, because depending on when you post this video, because I haven't posted a video out there, 5 for 50 won't come up in the search. So it's just, if you type it into YouTube, it's just 5 for 50 spelled out, FIVE, for FOR, and then 50. And so you might have to look for it a little harder than normal until I start getting a few videos out there, but it's up.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll definitely put that link in the show notes, and then if they click
Thank
the
you.
link, it should directly
Yeah, that would solve it. Yep. Yep.
get
Do you,
them get them there.
do you
And
think of anything that you're hearing from your audience when you talk to them that you feel like we should talk about?
yes, now I'll give you the two most frequently asked questions I get, but
Okay.
how deep you want to go on them is once I get you going, I got another podcast coming up here. We'll need the abbreviated version, but
Okay. All right.
here's the two biggest frequently asked questions that I get, Jonathan.
Okay.
And we'll go in this order. So number one is pricing. How do I price the service? Whether you're doing lawn mowing or you're putting in mulch or whatever the service is, guys don't know what the price. Like they just don't know what their price should be. So if you could chime in on that. And then number two is, where do you find an employee who will show up and actually do the work? How do you find a good employee? Those are the two most
Okay.
frequently asked questions that I've gotten in over 1,200 podcast episodes.
Okay. So both of these require a long answer, but I'm going to give you the more quick answer, and then I'd be happy to talk more about this in the future. When it comes to pricing, I would encourage you to look at, this is the abbreviated answer. What are the bigger companies in your market charging? Excuse me, and model their pricing. And you might say, wow, they're kind of expensive or more expensive than I would have been, or I'm not good enough yet to charge that pricing. I would tell you that the only way you ever have the money to hire the better quality employees and have somebody in your office answering your phone so that you can have better customer service is to price up your services like the big guys price, so that you have enough money to get the great employee. So initially, just start by looking at what the larger companies are charging. And the reason I say larger companies is because they have to get their pricing right, or they can't build a good business. They had to figure out their pricing. So model them, do price shopping, have friends get price quotes from them, shop them around, find out what they're charging for these services, start there. We can talk a lot at another time, and I'll cover this topic on 5 for 50, but we can talk in more detail, Paul. I'd be happy to in the future for your audience, but that's where I would start.
That's so good. And is there any practical tips? You said have your friend call them, or like how do you practically, find out what Crab Apple down the road or Russell or these big companies in our area? I don't know what they are in Dallas, but how do you find out what their pricing is?
If you meet, so let's say you get Miss Smith and she was using one of these services before, you ask her what she was previously paying. That'd be one way. Another way is to literally ask for estimates. I mean, I don't know if some would think this is unethical, but I know a lot of people do this. It's, you ask for an estimate from that company, you have a friend get an estimate from them and for specific services, and you find out what they're charging. And it's not a perfect science, because you're then getting a price just for that property, and there's properties of varying sizes, but you've got to do this kind of a research to figure it out. And this is why it requires a bigger answer. I can give other tips of how you figure it out without going this route, but this is one of the easiest, fastest ways to get a feel for what is the market charging, and then to start there.
That's so good. Is there anything else you want to add about pricing?
And not anything I could keep super brief. So
Okay.
yeah, because
I got another interview scheduled
Yeah.
here. So,
Yeah.
but I do want to hear you quickly, Jonathan, on the employees. Like, how do you get at City Turf quality people who show up every morning and do a satisfactory job?
Yeah. So just rattle off a bunch of scenarios. Let's say you have an individual now that's helping you and they're a good individual. Then can you bonus that person? Not a new idea, but can you give them a bonus for helping you find a new team member? So if they help you find a new team member, maybe you give them, $500 after 90 days if that person sticks around or something like that. That good people tend to be able to help you find other good people. You want to think about, where do your team members live? So, for example, if you've noticed that the type of individual, I'll just use mowing as an example. If you've noticed that a lot of the team members that mow lawns live in certain areas, apartment buildings, or they visit these certain check cashing stores, or they visit certain, like a little convenience store, then you go to those areas and you market. We have put untold number of door hangers out on apartment buildings looking for people. We've hung advertisements in stores. We've gone to Spanish speaking church services for that specific service. You can go, and I'm just using that one service. So you want to get in the mind of, am I hiring a pest guy, a fert tech? Am I hiring mowing? Okay, that type of person, where do they live? Where do they transact? Would they be looking at Indeed? Would they be on LinkedIn? Would they be looking on Facebook? Would they be on uh, some other channel? Craigslist back in the day, I don't even know. I don't know if we do Craigslist or anything like that now. But you're thinking about, where are they at? What are they looking at? And then you're marketing in those places. Your those Yeah, I'll pause there because I know I could keep talking, but you want to go where they live and you want to advertise and market and talk to people. I'll say one more thing. Back in the day, I used to be a part of a cleaning company, and we would literally go to McDonald's or Walmart, and we would ask people that work there, "Hey, do you know anybody that wants to clean, is looking for a job in the cleaning industry?" And we would collect names. And so you've just got to get super aggressive. But much like marketing, you got to think about, where might your most probable next employee live and transact, and you want to go there and find them.
That's so good. Well, I really appreciate it, Jonathan, and definitely look forward to your new channel, 5 for 50. Guys, go subscribe and digest the content as it comes out. And I'm looking forward to seeing you. Hopefully, not the mosquitoes.
You won't see. You're going to be safe in
You
Dallas.
scared me, man. Your marketing worked. All right.
Good, good. Hey, that's what you want.
I don't want to, man. So I'll be there on September 3rd, and then looking forward to grabbing some dinner with
Yeah.
you that night.
Yep.
And who knows, I might bring some of my podcast stuff. Maybe we can unpack the pricing
Okay.
dilemma a little bit more, something if you got
Yeah,
time.
I'll do whatever you want to do. I've blocked those days out, so I'm hanging out with you.
Awesome. It's at the Irvin, maybe I'm not pronouncing it right.
Irving.
Irving.
Yep.
Okay. Irving Convention Center is where the event's at. You know where
Okay.
that is?
Oh yeah. Well, I know where Irving's at. I'll figure out where the convention center's at. Dallas is pretty big.
Okay.
So,
Cool.
yeah. Well,
Well,
Paul, thank you.
looking
It's great,
forward to
great
seeing
seeing
you,
you.
and
Yeah.
congratulations on the new YouTube channel, and we'll
Thank
try
you.
to get as many people over there as we can.
Oh, that's kind of you. I appreciate it. And I'd love to hear feedback from those that do come to the channel and tell me, like, what do you want? What could I do that would be of great value to you, that would help you get to where you want to go? That's the whole point of this. So let me know what I can do.